All right, everybody, welcome to the Better Than Before podcast, and we're here with a special guest, and his name is Cam Galgano, and he's the owner, operator, CEO of GPS, which stands for Galgano Performance Systems, and I've been lucky enough to meet Cam he just walked into the clinic one day, one of the first months I was open, and it's like, hey, I'm Cam, nice to meet you. And we know like 3 or 4 different people between the two of us, and he's an Illinois Wesleyan alum. So there's a handful of my buddies that I knew through Cam. But the biggest thing about Cam is he owns an awesome performance training facility that encounters all athletes from the youngest to the oldest, as in Big Pete Aleck, right?
Big Pete Aleck, yes. So our resident
meathead. Go ahead and give us a rundown of who you are and what GPS is.
All right. Well, GPS, so we opened, I think, Memorial Day 2018, and we're a sports performance facility that I always like to say can cater to any athlete of any age or sport, as well as any client who basically has a goal. So it's all goal-oriented, performance-driven training.
Yep. And when it comes into your average age, we joke around how it's the most important aspect for someone to get training is younger than what people think.
Yeah.
And what is that kind of goal / average client that's at GPS?
Yeah, I would say our bread and butter age group is that like junior high through high school aged athlete, so 13 to 18 years old. And that's honestly, ever since I knew I wanted to work in this field, I always thought I was going to take the traditional, strength and conditioning route, go get my master's and become a GA at a school, work at a college for a few years, work somewhere else. Maybe when I'm 30, 35, open up a place like this, back in my hometown. But I realized I'm like the age and the type of athletes I want to work with are that developmental type athletes, 13, 18, because like we talked about, you can truly make the most amount of impact and help athletes grow the most, I think, in that age group.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you have a similar background to myself where we have astounding frames of being 6'5", or I always joke around the inverse of that, 5'6", right? And strength and conditioning has been in huge importance for our athletic development at a young age. And the sports that you played, you were a football guy, you were a baseball guy, you kind of did the whole gambit. Yeah. But strength and conditioning was big for you growing up too, correct?
Oh, for sure. Game changer, especially too. I mean, I always tell, if you're 6'3", 200 pounds, it's like you pass the eye test. Guys like us don't pass the eye test right away.
That's right. Well, and that's been your motivation to kind of bring back that sort of training to your hometown.
Yeah, exactly. I always say I want to be, the type of coach and, have the type of gym that I wish I would have had when I was, 16, 17 years old.
And what type of gym does that look like?
Yeah. Well, basically, I always like to say that I think our training definitely can, set us apart, because I think we provide super high quality, cutting edge training that covers, like we said, every area of athletic development, ranging from speed, power, strength, the whole 9 yards. But I always said the game changer, I think, is that culture, is that experience. And like we talked about, providing that group training, the energy that comes with that group training, but with the individualization that really ensures that every athlete is getting the highest quality training as possible.
Right, and we know the importance of competition and the ability to say, hey, I have to get this X and O weight accomplished for 10 reps, and I know my buddy that just got the 10 reps, so I'm going to ensure I get it, right? Because it's just a whole different ballgame training by yourself, especially at that age where it's like, I think I'm doing what I'm supposed to, or you're going into the gym with dad versus walking into a turf facility with robo weights all over, and kids are sprinting on this aspect of the gym and doing some goblet squats over here, some slug pushes. It's just a completely different game changer.
Yeah, that's huge, especially like you mentioned, the competitive aspect of group training is what I think is the game changer, that all these kids need somebody to push them, because when you're training by yourself, especially if you're doing a sprint or a jump, it's pretty easy to not go 100%, especially when you're not getting that feedback or you don't have somebody pushing you. But when you're facing somebody who's, just as fast or maybe faster than you, it's only going to benefit both athletes. Same thing in the weight room.
Right, and I talked to a handful of people, all of my patients, about that importance, like you said, the individualization paired with the group training, and you guys do a great job with saying, hey, if this person who's been training for 4 or 5 years of their life and this person's brand new to it, we got other coaches around the facility to kind of make sure that everyone's getting their correct training dose.
Yeah, we are definitely lucky enough to have the manpower. I mean, the other day we had 15, 20 people in the gym, but we had 4 coaches, train people at that time. So we're almost able to break the group, the larger group, up into like smaller mini groups based upon, the athlete's skill level, their training age.
Right.
We can have 16, 17-year-olds in there who've been training for 3, 4 years who are, super strong, super advanced. They may be, doing some form of a more advanced squat variation, but in that same group, we may have 12, 13-year-olds who are off to another rack with another coach, doing a goblet squat, doing something a little bit more beginner-based. Right. So it's nice, it's a luxury, because those athletes can train in the same group, but they're getting the training that's still, appropriate for them.
Right, and I think that's the biggest thing that separates a facility like yourself away from your traditional, we just do group training.
Yeah.
Because if it's you walk in and this is the workout and everyone just go, well, that can serve maybe this percent of the workout group, but then this percent of the workout group, they may either be way too easy for them or it can be way over the top too hard.
Yeah.
And then those are the conversations I typically have with patients that are in here, and I'm like, all right, we just have to change this up a little bit.
Exactly. And that's what we found. It's like, when we were first starting off, we found, we were always having to make these adjustments to modify and accommodate the workout to these, different type of athletes. So we're like, all right, let's just come up with the best way possible to have these kids train at the same time, but also make sure they're getting exactly what they need in that training session.
Great. Well, if, say, let's call it a basketball athlete that's 7th or 8th grade, starts training with you guys next week, what does that process look like for them onboarding? Yeah.
So I always recommend athletes, once they come in, they see the gym, I get to talk to them, is start off, 2 times a week. We have a 2 times a week monthly membership. I always like to say that 2 times a week is perfect because, when you first start off training, you're going to be sore. Especially these kids, it's their first taste of the weight room.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to be smoked after,
In a good way.
In a good way, obviously, in a good way. But 2 times a week, I always say, if you can get 2 times a week in, it's 8 training sessions in a month. You look at that, 3 to 6 months, what's that, 24 to 48 training sessions? That's where you really can start to accumulate some really good training and see some really good results. And then as you get more advanced, you can come 3, 4, 5 days a week. But I think, that beginner, that 2 times a week of total body strength training, of, linear, lateral speed work to change direction, that just sets a super solid foundation for, athletes and any client to really build upon.
Well, and you hit it on the head there, because an athlete or just human that is so young and not really used to putting weight on their back or carrying things and utilizing their musculature that they're developing, the training needs to be pretty wide and versed and have a lot of variety to it to make sure you're hitting on all those different aspects that the body can do, right?
Yeah.
So you guys always talk about those different patterns of motion that you use, and that's the same language I use in here with patients. Is we want to make sure that when we're training the body, it's in balance. So we're using our front side muscles, so our pushing muscles, as much as our pulling muscles, which is our back. We're lunging as much as we're squatting. We're doing core stuff as much as we're doing with picking something off the ground. And that just makes the best athlete.
No, for sure. And that's why I think our work together, our relationship has worked so well, because there's so much that goes hand in hand. Like you said, we use the same verbiage as far as, you got to squat, you got to lunge, you got to hip hinge, push, pull. Good movement, like is good movement. And what's nice is with you, that this is basically, I always say, the game changer with what you do is, you're not your typical, chiropractor. You're not just giving adjustments. You're actually trying to find out if there's pain, what is causing the pain, which is, I think, the most important thing for actually, not only relieving pain, but making sure the pain doesn't come back. Because the last thing we want, for an athlete is if they get hurt is to re-injure themselves or get hurt, doing the same thing, because they're just gonna it's gonna be like a never-ending cycle.
Right.
But yeah, I think that is why, it works so well between us, because we have the same mindset.
Yeah, well, we know in literature the number one cause of neck pain is previous neck pain.
Mm-hmm.
The number one cause of low back pain is previous low back pain. The number one cause of any pain is previous to that.
Yeah.
So that's why it's such an important objective here at the office to say, okay, let's get you out of pain as fast as we can, but then let's truly understand and fix the cause of that.
Yeah.
So then you know what to do as your maintenance deal, or hey, you're out thriving in life, but I know I got to do a little bit of this every day to keep that thing feeling good.
Yeah.
But then also on the training side, people are a little bit more aware of their bodies, saying, hey, if I know my ankle's acting up, maybe front squat isn't the best thing for me today, right? So, and you as a coach have the ability to say, yeah, totally, let's do split squat, or let's do other variations to keep them training, but not just, hey, let's just keep as is just because the body's saying so.
Yeah, that's what's so nice is a lot of people, after seeing you and after kind of experiencing these injuries, they realize there's more to training beyond traditional back squat, barbell deadlift, bench, all the traditional kind of meathead type of exercises. People realize I can still get a really effective training session doing a split squat, doing these other alternatives that don't cause pain.
Yeah, body weight, you're laying on the floor trying to pick up your foot, and Danny can know exactly what we're talking about with that, where she's like, this is impossible. Like, how is it so hard to pick up my foot? And she was using an aspect of her glute that she just was unaware of for over the years. So multiple stories that we can say, hey, just because we're in a gym that has a whole host of weight, a whole host of bands, a whole host of chains, sometimes a simple body weight deal that trains the right area that you're not used to can be pretty darn effective.
No, exactly. And that's, again, what's so nice. It makes working with you, it makes the individualization components of our training so much more effective, because I know if an athlete has a previous injury or has some sort of a weakness, we can modify that exercise to ensure that they're getting a training effect, but also not, doing more harm than good.
Bingo. Yep. Bingo. Well, if an athlete is training at your facility, what is like a normal workout look like? So they enter the doors. What are we doing for that next hour, 90 minutes, however long your sessions are?
Yeah. So our 75-minute, 90-minute session always starts off with a warm-up. And then, for any athlete, we'll do some form of, your traditional speed agility type training, whether it's more linear speed, so straight ahead sprinting, or change direction, moving side to side, cutting, the whole 9 yards. Then you go into, we call it like power work, so your plyometrics, your med ball throws, all that good stuff. So that's like the first 30, 35 minutes. And then we go off into the weight room, and that's where we kind of break off into these different groups to where we perform our strength training, again, individualized. So if, the squat is the main movement for that day, there could be a group that could be back squatting with chains to work on more explosive strength. Then you have, 12, 13-year-olds goblet squatting. Still, coaching and cueing the squat the same, but modifying and adjusting the exercise to fit the athlete's needs.
That's awesome. And I love how we said your warm-up, your power, your /speed stuff that's your warm-up part of the workout, quote unquote, and it's 35 to 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So I can almost assure you that there's a handful of people that start there their first couple of weeks and they're like, whoa, wait, that's the warm-up?
Yeah, exactly.
What the heck are we doing now?
Exactly. And there's always, and what's funny is, because I always say for the 7th, 8th grade, I always use the example of the 7th, 8th grade boy. They're generally their first taste of the weight room is with us. And at first they may be a little intimidated, but then they get to they like it. They see some muscles growing, and then they don't want to do the speed stuff anymore because they're not spending enough time lifting. I'm like, guys, come on now. We got to spend enough time here. They want to spend 60 minutes lifting. But I said, it's just par for the course. It's funny.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, it's creating the culture of, oh man, I'm starting to understand the benefit of this stuff. Let's just get straight ahead to there. But we always got to remember the stuff that allows us to do that stuff better, which is all of your warm-up based activities.
Yeah, for sure.
And your part of the workout. Yeah. Well, let's kind of express your importance of strength training and why you feel that's such an urgency and such an importance to your population of training.
Well, I mean, number one, obviously from like a performance enhancement benefit, when you get stronger, when you get more powerful, obviously it helps you get faster, helps with your vertical jumping ability, helps you throw harder. All of those, different, sport measurables, those sport abilities, getting stronger helps with all that. But honestly, like number two, just from a confidence perspective too, I've seen kids, from day one when they walk in to where they are now, they're just so much more confident. And I think obviously that carries over to sporting field, but just every other area of life. I mean, kids start to open up, and that's one of the things. Obviously, I like to think that our training, like I said, kind of can separate us, but the culture and just the overall training session experience, I think that truly is what keeps kids wanting to come back for them because they like to work out. The last thing, I always said the last thing I wanted to do was to have kids dread coming in, to see us, because then they're not going to want to come back.
Right. Well, you make it that environment where as soon as people are parking there, walking in, like they're jazzed up to compete with someone that's on their team, someone that's on the opposite team, but in the area, but they're all working out together just to individually become their best, but also do it together as in, hey, we had a great session. Yeah,
no, for sure. And then I always joke, especially recently, I said that I think we've become the 13, 18-year-olds, like country club of our kids. They come and they'll get their 10 minutes before. There's a group of them. They're all chatting. It's nice, they can give me headaches sometimes trying to get the ball rolling. Yeah. But I do truly, watching from afar, I do love to see it because I know kids, they want to come in there, which is super nice to see. And I know that, we've had kids come from different areas that have become good friends from the gym, which is really cool to see.
Well, I mean, piggybacking off of that, I mean, I've treated a handful of the clients at your gym that have been nursing some stuff, whether it's throughout their sport year or whatever's going on, and it was like the third visit of one of the patients that came in here, and I was like, oh, so when can we get you in tomorrow morning? And he's like, well, I'm kind of like an hour and a half commute from where you're at. And I'm like, well, that's like an hour from Cam. He's like, yeah. I'm like, so people are traveling a good amount of distance in order to train at your facility, which I think is awesome because that's representation that you're doing something different that isn't around.
I like to think so.
Awesome. Well, when we were talking about strength there, I love the ability because there's a handful of patients that aren't even associated with you yet, but they're younger, they've kind of gotten through their treatment plan that I've worked with them, and then I've just passed off to you because the number one way that we can mitigate or prevent injury for any sort of young athlete or just young human is by getting strong. And that's why I love your guys' system over there, because they're getting strong in all varieties of how the body can move. So it's a really neat way for me to just kind of segue, push people your way and say, all right, hey, you're not in pain anymore, just go get strong and move really well over at GPS.
Yeah, that's what's cool about when athletes come over from me or I send them over your way and they come back, is because you're working on getting these athletes to move through full ranges of motion without pain. And it makes our lives so much easier. And the fact that we have that communication for you to tell me, okay, this is what they're doing, here is some limitations they have. But when they are able to move through full ranges of motion, they're actually able to perform the movements we want them to perform correctly. And then we can gradually add load to it. And like you said, just getting stronger, I always say, helps make the body just bulletproof.
Oh, for sure. 100%. And when you move well, it's a lot easier to get stronger.
For sure.
Right? Versus if you can only squat, this far, or your bench press is only good and then the rest hurts from down to here, you're not going to get much stronger much faster because you're always fighting against yourself. So now if you can move well and do that often with weight at your facility, it's like, all right, we're hitting PRs almost every other week.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah, and I don't think people realize, and I'm sure this is, have to do this, I don't think people realize how poorly they actually are moving, or like the amount of compensation that's going on with their body, because you'll obviously isolate certain joints, see how they're actually moving, but people, in order to perform certain movements, they have all these movement compensations that they don't even realize.
Right.
And it's like, I know, like my knees, it's like when I would have knee pain, you're saying like my hip wasn't moving properly, I've got no ankle mobility. Right. People don't realize that because they've been able to do these things, or they've been doing these things for so long.
Well, and that's why we do our assessments when it comes into whether it's new trainees at your gym or the sport assessment that I do here, is I say, hey, we know how you may squat or how you may throw a baseball or how you do normal activities, but let me look and see how all the tools for that job work. How does your ankle move? How does your knee move? How does your hip? How do all these specific things that are included in the arm being thrown or squatting or jumping or sprinting, how do those move so we can ensure if, there's no lights on in the car, right, that say, hey, alert, 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 well then boom, go train and get as strong and athletic as possible.
Exactly. And I think it's good for people to know what these limitations are before they actually get it. If you can catch it before it happens, and that is truly what's going to keep these athletes or anybody, safe from injury.
There you go. Yeah. Well, recently, the last 3-4 months, you have added GPS speed to your facility. Give us a rundown what it is, what it looks like.
Yeah, what's nice is GPS speed, our kind of newest addition to GPS. It's a big open turf space that has allowed us to kind of take more time to teach kids more of the technical and fundamental elements, behind linear sprinting or change of direction, and actually have more space to do so, so get more kids in there. So it's been super helpful, and I always like to say when you're able to add the technical elements to sprinting and movement, when you parlay that with more strength, more power, that's when you get this awesome blend of complete athletic development. So it's been really nice to have, and we're able to do a lot of team training in there.
Right.
So just getting more of a variety of different type of athletes in there.
Well, you hit it on the head, because in some sort of a session at GPS, you're getting power training in, which is just very fast strength training. And then you have strength training, so people are getting stronger. And then you have some sort of speed development, so they're at some point getting faster with straight line speed or left and right speed. And in all three of those aspects, those are used in whether you're a cheerleader, a hockey player, a football player, a baseball player. No matter how you're using your body, you're using those in everyday life or your sport. So the variety of people that are training at your facility is all of those, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, you hit the nail on the coffin. We've had every sort of athlete ranging from football, baseball, hockey to cheerleading. So that, I think, really goes to show you that even though there obviously comes a time and place where athletes and clients need that, exact individualized program or exercise, at the end of the day, if you get stronger, if you get more powerful, and you get faster, and you're in better overall shape, that really is going to carry over to a wide variety of sports. And I think that's also why back in the day when you saw people who were playing 2, 3, 4 sports and they didn't have this type of training, they were still able to dominate, basically.
Right.
Is because they were great movers, they well conditioned, the whole 9 yards.